There are moments in life when truth doesn't come from a person, but from a pair of amber eyes and a heartbeat covered in fur. The story you're about to hear began in a quiet courtroom, the kind of place where adults speak in circles, laws twist into knots, and children are often forgotten in the noise. But not on that day. Because on that day, a little girl named Emily refused to speak, and a German shepherd named Rex refused to stay silent. People came to watch a legal battle. They left witnessing something closer to a miracle. Rex wasn't just a police dog. He was something more. One of those rare souls who just knows. Knows when a child is scared. Knows when something isn't right. Knows when the truth is hiding where no one wants to look. When the judge, desperate for answers, asked Rex to choose which lawyer in the room he trusted, nobody expected what came next. Not the attorneys, not the officers, not even Emily. But the little girl's eyes widened that day, because she recognized something adults had missed. And the German shepherd, who never forgot a scent, uncovered a secret that would change everything. Stay with me. You'll want to hear how this ends. The courtroom had never felt this heavy. Even before the proceedings began, the air seemed thick with the kind of silence that presses against the ribs and makes breathing feel like a conscious effort. Rows of spectators whispered in tight clusters, their murmurs swallowed by the high wooden walls and the echo of distant footsteps. Every seat was filled. Every eye was trained toward the front of the room, where the judge's bench loomed like a stern guardian of truth. A case like this, a missing child, a terrified witness, and a trail of lies winding through the shadows, was the kind that pulled people in with a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity. But even the most hardened courtroom regulars seemed unsettled today. Something about the tension felt wrong, fragile, volatile. At the center of it all, perched in a too-large chair beside her court-appointed guardian, sat Emily Whitford, a tiny figure swallowed in a pale blue dress. Her hands clutched the hem so tightly her knuckles had turned bone white. Her legs dangled above the floor, too short to reach it. Her shoulders, thin, delicate, quivered every few seconds, as though an invisible cold draft brushed past her. But it wasn't cold. It was fear. Pure, unfiltered, suffocating fear. Since the night her brother vanished, Emily hadn't spoken a word. Not to her guardian, not to the police, not to the judge. She carried the silence like a shield, one she refused to lower, no matter how gently the adults tried to coax her. And today, she was the only witness. Two attorneys sat on opposite sides of the courtroom, their faces carved into masks of carefully curated professionalism. But beneath those marble expressions was desperation. Neither knew how to proceed with a witness who would not speak, and both feared what would happen when the judge realized just how unprepared they were. Judge Alistair Munro exhaled slowly, adjusting his glasses as he glanced at Emily again. His features, though stern, carried a softness that appeared only around children. It broke him to see one so young dragged into a world so merciless. On his left, the prosecutor shuffled papers with restless fingers. On his right, the defense attorney glanced occasionally at Emily, his expression unreadable. The tension rose with every passing second. Then the doors at the back of the courtroom opened. A ripple went through the room. Heads turned, whispers sparked, and even the attorneys straightened as though pulled upright by strings. A police officer stepped inside first, and beside him walked a German shepherd. Not just any German shepherd. Rex, the department's most seasoned K-9. A veteran of search and rescue missions, bomb detection, and missing person cases. A dog whose instincts had saved more lives than a dozen officers combined. Rex walked with the confidence of someone who understood his purpose. His steps were steady, his posture tall, but his eyes, warm, perceptive, almost human, moved immediately toward the trembling girl at the front of the room. Emily froze. The moment their eyes met, something shifted, barely noticeable, but unmistakably real, like a single crack forming on a sheet of ice. The officer approached the guardian gently. Judge Monroe approved him, he said softly, just to help her feel safer. The guardian nodded, uncertain. Emily didn't move. Rex didn't bark. He didn't pull at the leash. He simply walked closer and lowered his head to her level, tail still, ears gently forward. An invitation, a gesture of peace. Emily's fingers twitched, loosening their grip on her dress. Her breath hitched, just enough that her guardian noticed. Judge Monroe's voice softened. Given the circumstances, we're permitting the presence of the K-9 for emotional support. Perhaps it will help Miss Whitford feel safe enough to cooperate. No one objected, not even the defense. Rex waited patiently. Emily's eyes glistened, wide and glassy. Her lower lip trembled. The courtroom held its breath. Then slowly, fearfully, she reached out. Her tiny fingers brushed his fur, and the dam inside her broke. Her chest rose with a shaky breath, her eyes squeezing shut, as though the act of touching him to release a weight she'd held for far too long. She leaned closer, and for the first time in 3 weeks, she spoke. Just one word, one fragile, heartbreaking whisper. Noah. A gasp swept through the courtroom. The prosecutor dropped his pen. The judge leaned forward. Even the defense attorney stiffened. Emily's guardian covered her mouth, eyes flooding with tears. Emily clung to Rex's fur, as if he were the only solid thing left in a world collapsing under her feet. Her voice was barely audible, but every soul in the room heard it. The name of the missing boy. The name she had refused to say. The name she held like a wound too raw to expose. Rex didn't move. He didn't bark. He didn't even look up. Instead, he pressed his head gently against her hand, reassuring, calm, protective. His silent presence wrapped around her like a blanket. And in that moment, every adult in the courtroom understood what they had missed. Emily didn't trust people. Not anymore. But she trusted Rex. She trusted him enough to speak her brother's name. Trusted him enough to breathe when her world had stolen her voice. Trusted him enough to break the silence that had chained her since the night everything shattered. Rex had done in seconds what teams of investigators, psychologists, and legal experts hadn't achieved in weeks. Judge Monroe whispered under his breath, almost reverently, "Good dog." Because for the first time since the nightmare began, they finally had a chance to find the truth. For a moment, the courtroom remained suspended in a fragile hush, like the room itself understood the gravity of hearing Emily whisper her brother's name. But fragile moments never last long in a place built on conflict. The silence cracked when the prosecutor abruptly stood, flipping through his notes with frantic urgency. "Your Honor, this changes everything. If the child is able to speak, even a little, we must—" "Objection," the defense snapped, rising at once. His chair screeched across the floor, slicing through the quiet like a blade. The child's emotional state is too unstable. That whisper cannot be considered reliable testimony. The prosecutor turned sharply, eyes blazing. You would deny the first word she's spoken since her brother vanished? The defense lawyer stepped closer, his tone icy. I would deny anything that comes from coercion, intentional or not. Their voices collided in a rising storm. Within seconds, the courtroom erupted, attorneys shouting, spectators murmuring, the guardian trying to shield Emily from the chaos. The girl shrank in her seat, trembling violently again, her small hand still gripping Rex's fur. Her breathing hitched, her shoulders curled inward, her eyes darted from one arguing adult to the other. Lost, terrified. The sound of raised voices, the same kind she'd heard the night her world collapsed. Rex sensed her distress instantly. He stepped closer, pressing his body against her legs. His fur brushed her fingertips, grounding her. His ears flicked back, but he didn't bark. Not yet. He was waiting, watching. Judge Monroe finally slammed his gavel, the loud crack echoing like a bolt of lightning. Enough! The room fell into stunned silence. The judge stared down at the two lawyers with the disappointment of a father scolding children who should have known better. You're both losing sight of the most important person in this courtroom. He pointed gently toward Emily. A frightened child who needs protection, not manipulation. Both attorneys swallowed hard and looked away, chastened. Emily blinked at the judge, unsure whether to feel relieved or even more overwhelmed. Rex lifted his head, eyes locked on the judge as if evaluating him too. Monroe leaned back in his chair, rubbing the bridge of his nose. His voice softened. It's clear to me that Miss Whitford won't respond to you, to me, or to any adult here in this room. But she did respond to him. He gestured toward Rex. A ripple moved through the courtroom. Interest, confusion, disbelief. The judge continued slowly, choosing each word with care. If she cannot tell us who she trusts, perhaps he can. The prosecutor frowned. Your Honor, are you suggesting... A long pause. Then Monroe said it, the words that would make legal history and send a chill down the room. Let the dog choose who is trustworthy. A collective gasp burst through the courtroom. Someone whispered, Is he serious? Another whispered back, It's insane. But maybe it's not. Even the stenographer stopped typing for a full 3 seconds. The defense attorney sputtered. Your Honor, with all due respect, this is absurd. A dog cannot... A trained police K-9, the judge corrected firmly. Timed 5 chinorms. A dog whose instincts have solved more cases than any man in this room, including you. The defense fell silent, jaw tightening. All eyes turned to Rex. Rex, who stood steady and alert. Rex, who hadn't taken his eyes off Emily since the noise began. Rex, who seemed to understand what was being asked, even before Monroe finished explaining it. The judge nodded to the handler. Release him. Let him examine freely. The officer unclipped the leash. Rex stepped forward into the center aisle, each movement deliberate, almost ceremonial. The wooden floor creaked under his weight, soft yet commanding. He started walking. The courtroom held its breath as he passed each row of spectators, sniffing the air, observing faces, reading the invisible currents of tension that swirled from person to person. His ears rotated like finely tuned radar dishes. Someone whispered, It's like he sees right through us. No one disagreed. Rex's path circled the prosecutor first. The man's hands trembled slightly as the dog approached. Rex sniffed him, then moved on without hesitation. Then Rex turned toward the defense table. The defense lawyer, Mr. Harland, showed a brief flicker of unease, a micro-expression, but Rex caught it. He slowed, nostrils flaring subtly. Watching him felt like watching a lie detector in motion, a living instrument tuned to truth. Emily suddenly gripped her seat so hard her knuckles whitened again. Something inside her, some instinct sharpened by trauma, tightened. She knew this feeling. She'd felt it once before, in the darkness of that night when the wrong person came too close, when the air itself felt wrong. Her heart pounded. "Rex," she whispered, so faintly only the dog seemed to hear. He paused, turned, then continued toward the defense lawyer with a new, sharper focus. Mr. Harland swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. He took a half step back. Rex's tail lowered, his ears pinned forward. A deep, rumbling growl built in his chest. Slow, deliberate, unmistakably threatening. The kind of growl that didn't come from confusion, but from recognition. The courtroom froze. The prosecutor's eyes widened. The judge straightened abruptly. Emily's guardian gasped. Emily herself squeezed her seat even tighter, breath caught in her throat. Harlan stiffened, his face draining of color. Rex took one more step forward and growled again. Louder, deeper, resonant with warning. Not random, not uncertain, not the kind of growl a dog gives without reason. A growl born from scent, from memory, from danger. No one moved. No one breathed. It felt as if the entire courtroom had turned to stone, suspended in a single terrifying moment. Mini-climax number 1 struck like a lightning bolt. Rex stood inches from the defense lawyer, growling directly at him, eyes locked, body rigid, and the whole room realized the dog had chosen. For a long, electric moment, the courtroom remained frozen. Rex's low growl rumbled through the air like distant thunder, vibrating through wooden benches and trembling hearts. Every pair of eyes locked on the German Shepherd's rigid stance, muscles tight, ears pinned forward, tail lowered in that unmistakable line of warning. The defense lawyer, Mr. Harland, swallowed hard, his throat bobbing like he'd just tried to force down a stone. Then Rex did something no one expected. He stopped growling. Silence. A breath held by the whole room. Then, with a sudden pivot, sharp, purposeful, Rex turned away from Harland and strode across the courtroom floor. He moved fast, not frantic, not confused, fast with certainty. His claws clicked against the hardwood floor, echoing in the stunned quiet. His eyes remained locked forward, amber, intense, unwavering. And then he stopped, just inches in front of the prosecutor, Mr. Green. Rex planted himself there, body angled slightly, as if forming a barrier of fur and muscle between the prosecutor and everyone else. His stance was protective, instinctive, territorial. The room erupted into whispers. What is he doing? Why did he move away? Is he choosing? Oh my God. He's choosing the prosecutor? Judge Monroe leaned forward, gripping the edge of the bench. Even he seemed caught between disbelief and dawning understanding. The prosecutor stared down at Rex in pure astonishment. What? Why me? But Emily reacted differently. As Rex positioned himself protectively, something shifted in the little girl's eyes. Something fragile, and shimmering. Recognition. Her breath caught, and her small hand drifted toward her chest as she whispered, barely audible, "He knows." Rex glanced back at her, just for a heartbeat, and Emily's lips trembled. She understood something the adults didn't, something she herself couldn't explain. But she knew she felt it. Rex wasn't just choosing who he trusted. He was choosing who she should trust. Then it happened. So sudden it made Emily flinch and sent a ripple through the courtroom. Rex barked. One single, explosive bark. Sharp, loud, clear, purposeful. A trained signal, a danger alert. A bark Rex only used when detecting a threat, a lie, or a person connected to harm. The sound cracked through the air like a whip, shattering the silence. The prosecutor jolted backward. Spectators leaned in. Emily's eyes widened, shimmering with terror and understanding. Her brother. The night he disappeared. The scent. The feeling. Rex wasn't confused. He wasn't guessing. He had detected something. Something he recognized. Something he remembered. And it wasn't the prosecutor. Slowly, terrifyingly, Rex turned his head back toward the defense lawyer. Mr. Harlan stood frozen, his face pale as wax. Rex took a single step toward him. Then another. No growling this time. Just a chilling, deliberate approach that seemed to shrink the room and tighten every throat. A bead of sweat rolled down Harlan's temple. He wiped it with a trembling hand. His eyes darted to the exits, to the judge, to the jury box, anywhere except the dog closing in. The prosecutor whispered, "He's not threatening me. He's guarding me." Judge Monroe's voice dropped low. "That's exactly what it looks like." Rex stopped only a few feet from Harlan. His body stiffened. His tail rose. Not wagging, not relaxed. Held straight and rigid. A stance every canine handler recognized. Aggression in restraint. A warning before the storm. Harlan took a step backward. Rex followed. Harlan took another. Rex matched it. And for the first time, Harlan's voice cracked. Call off the dog. This is ridiculous. He's an animal. He doesn't know what he's doing." The handler didn't move. The judge didn't speak. No one breathed. Emily's voice, faint, trembling, floated across the courtroom. "He knows." Rex's gaze locked onto Harlan with a predator's intensity. Keen, unblinking, reading every twitch of muscle and flicker of nerves. He inhaled deeply through his nose and stiffened, as if the scent confirmed something dangerous, something remembered. A tremor ran down Emily's spine. Her eyes filled with tears. She remembered that smell too. Not clearly, not with understanding, but she remembered fear and shadows. And the night everything changed. Rex growled, not the low warning from before. This was deeper, more primal, more certain. A growl that rolled through his chest like a living earthquake. Every person in the courtroom felt it, not just in their ears, but in their bones. Rex didn't lunge. He didn't bark again. He simply held the line, unmoving, unyielding, uncertain. A silent accusation. A verdict without words. The prosecutor whispered, "Your Honor, I think he's telling us something." Judge Monroe didn't blink. I think he's telling us everything. Harlan's last attempt at composure broke. His breath quickened. His skin flushed. His eyes, shifty, panicked, skittered across the courtroom like trapped insects searching for escape. "Call him off," he pleaded, voice trembling. He's confused. He's misinterpreting something. You can't." Rex took another step forward. Harlan choked on his next word. The entire courtroom felt the moment snap, like a wire pulled too tight. Rex refused to move away, refused to be redirected, refused to break his stance. Tail stiff, back arched, every instinct locked on Harlan. The German shepherd, silent guardian, seasoned canine, savior of countless lives, was telling them something louder than any human testimony. The danger was not elsewhere. It was right in front of them. And the courtroom knew. The dog had chosen. The tension in the courtroom felt like a rope pulled to the point of snapping. Rex remained fixed in that rigid, accusatory stance. Every muscle taut, every breath measured. The defense lawyer stood frozen, sweat beading along his brow, trembling in ways he couldn't hide. But Emily wasn't looking at Rex anymore. She was staring down at her own hands. Her fingers twitched, nervously, compulsively, as if fighting something inside her. A thought, a memory, a truth trying to claw its way to the surface. Her guardian leaned in gently. "Emily, sweetheart, what is it?" Emily didn't speak. She hadn't spoken since whispering her brother's name. But she did something unexpected, something small, almost insignificant. She reached into the pocket of her dress. Tiny fingers fumbled inside the soft fabric. Something clicked lightly, plastic against metal. The courtroom watched, transfixed, as she slowly pulled out a small toy car. Red paint, scratched edges, one wheel slightly crooked. She gripped it as though it were an anchor keeping her from drifting into the darkness of her own memories. Judge Monroe noticed first. "What's that you have there, Miss Whitford?" Emily didn't answer. Instead, her hand shook, her breath trembled, her eyes flicked toward Rex, unsure, frightened. The judge softened his voice gentler than before. "Emily, it's all right. You can show us." Her small palm opened. The toy car lay there, innocent, unremarkable, easily overlooked. But its presence changed the air, like a ghost from the past stepping into the room. The judge leaned forward. "Where did you get that?" Emily stared down at the toy, then lifted her arm, slow as dawn breaking, and pointed her trembling finger directly toward the defense lawyer. A shockwave hit the room. Gasps, murmurs. A woman clasped a hand over her mouth. Harlan flinched as though struck. Me? I didn't..." "She's confused. She's traumatized. She doesn't know But he didn't finish. Because Rex had moved. Not fast, not aggressively, just one single deliberate step toward the toy. Then another. Emily held her breath as Rex reached her feet. He lowered his head, nose inches from the little red car. He sniffed once, then again, deeper, and his reaction was immediate. A soft, pained whine escaped his throat. Not a bark, not a growl, a whine, the kind he used only during missing person searches, when he detected the faint trace of gunpowder. The handler's face drained of color. Oh no! The courtroom reeled. Rex stepped back, ears flattening, tail stiffening. His body language said everything his voice couldn't. This object carried danger. This object carried truth. This object was a clue. The prosecutor's voice broke the quiet. That's gunpowder residue. He's trained to signal it. Harlan's face twisted with panic. That's ridiculous. It's a children's toy, for God's sake. But the judge was already studying Emily. Her trembling lips, her wide eyes, the way she clutched the toy to her chest like it betrayed her. Judge Monroe's voice came low, controlled, chilling. Miss Whitford, did he give you that toy? He didn't have to name the lawyer. Emily's chin quivered. A single tear slid down her cheek. Then she nodded. Slow. Heartbreaking. True. The defense attorney's composure shattered. This is absurd. She's a child. She barely remembers anything. And a dog sniffing a toy. Your Honor, surely you— Silence, Monroe thundered. But Emily barely heard him. She stared at the toy. This thing she believed was a kind gift, a token of comfort, a moment of kindness in a world full of shadows. But now she saw it for what it was. A trap. A lie. A weapon hidden inside a child's moment of trust. The betrayal washed over her in a quiet, devastating wave. Emily's shoulders shook. Tears began to fall, soft, silent, like rain breaking from the clouds. Rex sensed the shift instantly. The German shepherd eased closer, gently pressing his head against her knee. He didn't bark. He didn't whine again. He simply comforted her. Emily leaned forward, burying her face in Rex's fur, small hands shaking as they clutched his thick coat. Her tears soaked into his neck, but Rex didn't move. He stayed perfectly still, solid, warm, unwavering, a protector, a shield, a heartbeat she could trust. The courtroom watched in stunned silence. Even the prosecutor's eyes softened. Even the bailiff swallowed hard. Even the judge hesitated, afraid to interrupt the fragile moment between child and dog. Her guardian wiped her own tears, whispering, "It's okay, Emily. You didn't know." But Emily cried harder, and Rex lifted his head just enough to gently lick one tear from her cheek. The sound that followed wasn't a gasp. It was something closer to heartbreak, breaking open across the room. Judge Monroe straightened, voice thick but steady. "Bailiff?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Take Mr. Harland into custody for immediate investigation, tampering with evidence, attempted manipulation of a witness, possible involvement in the kidnapping." Harland's knees buckled. You can't. This is insane. This is baseless." Two officers grabbed him by the arms. Rex growled once, quiet, menacing, just enough to freeze Harland mid-protest. Mini-climax number 3 detonated quietly but powerfully. The judge had ordered a full investigation into the defense lawyer. Because of a toy. Time 500 mausuos. Because of a dog. Because of a child's forgotten memory. And Emily, still crying softly, clung to Rex like he was the last safe part of her shattered world. Rex didn't let her go. The courtroom emptied slowly, murmurs fading into distant echoes behind. The heavy wooden doors. Emily didn't watch the officers escort Mr. Harland away. She didn't watch the judge rise from his bench, nor the attorneys whisper among themselves. Her world had shrunk to a single point, the warm, steady presence of Rex beside her. Minutes later, She was quietly escorted to a private chamber adjacent to the judge's office. Not a cell, not an interrogation room. A quiet, softly lit space with 2 chairs, a small table, and a couch pushed against the wall. The kind of room meant to soothe frightened witnesses. The door clicked shut behind them. Silence settled. Heavy, but gentle. Emily's guardian sat beside her, speaking in hushed tones to a female investigator nearby. Papers rustled. Evidence was reviewed. Photographs exchanged. Voices remained low, careful not to startle the trembling child. Rex sat at Emily's feet, posture upright and alert, but his gaze, warm and constant, stayed locked on her face. He sensed something shifting inside her, something fragile and brave fighting its way to the surface. Emily had stopped crying, but her hands still shook. She held the toy car in her lap like it was both a curse and a clue. Her thumb traced the chipped paint, hoping it might smooth away days of fear. The investigator crouched slightly, keeping a respectful distance. "Emily, sweetheart, you did very good today. You were so brave." Emily didn't respond. The woman tried again, softer. "If there's anything you remember, anything at all, you can tell us. You're safe here." Emily's small shoulders hunched. Her lips trembled as though words sat behind them, lost in the dark. Her guardian placed a gentle hand on her back. "It's okay, honey. You don't have to talk if you don't want to." Rex shifted, leaning his head lightly against Emily's arm. It was the smallest gesture, barely a nudge. But for Emily, it unlocked something. Her fingers curled into his fur, breathing in the earthy scent of safety that clung to his coat. Her guardian whispered, "Do you want to talk to Rex?" Emily swallowed, then nodded. The room froze, not out of shock, but out of reverence. Emily leaned down, forehead resting gently against Rex's head. Her voice cracked from disuse, trembling like a candle flame in the wind. Rex." The dog closed his eyes slowly, acknowledging her. Emily's breath hitched. Words clawed their way out of old wounds. I saw it," she whispered. "The night Noah disappeared." The investigator's eyes widened, but she didn't move. The guardian clasped her hands, fighting tears. Emily continued, voice barely audible. "There was a basement." Rex's ears twitched sharply. Emily's gaze drifted upward, watching memories play across the ceiling. A dark basement, with concrete floors. It smelled like old water, and something sharp, something bad. Her fingers tightened in Rex's fur. The man, he had boots. At that word, boots, Rex's head lifted instantly. His ears snapped forward. Emily didn't notice. She was somewhere far away. "I heard them on the stairs, loud, heavy." Her breathing quickened. "He dragged Noah, and Noah screamed my name." Her voice cracked. "I tried to follow, but the man pushed me back." Tears streamed unchecked. "He locked the door. I heard it slam, then... Rex stood up, not abruptly, not in alarm, with purpose. He pressed his body against Emily's legs, firm, grounding. His tail remained still. His eyes sharpened, nostrils flaring as though catching the echo of a scent hidden in Emily's trembling words. The investigator took a careful step forward. Emily, did you see the man's face? Emily shook her head quickly, fear flashing across her features. No, I only saw his boots. Black, with thick soles. There was dirt on them, like he'd been outside. Rex growled softly. Not at Emily, but at the memory. The investigator and guardian exchanged a look. They knew Rex wasn't reacting randomly. He recognized something. Something familiar. Something dangerous. Emily suddenly stiffened. Her tears slowed. Her breath steadied. Her eyes, wet, red, frightened, lifted toward Rex, and for the first time, they held something new. Hope. Rex, she whispered. He's still alive. The room fell silent. The investigator straightened, breath catching. The guardian covered her mouth with her hand. Even the officer by the door flinched. Emily pressed her forehead to Rex's. Her voice broke, but didn't waver. I heard him. Noah. He was crying behind the door. He was scared. But he was alive. Rex responded instantly. A short, sharp exhale. The handler recognized it well. Alert, confirmation, determination. A child's memory was finally speaking, and a dog's instincts were answering. The investigator whispered, We need to reopen every lead, right now. But Emily wasn't listening to the adults. She looked only at Rex, her small, trembling hands cupped his face. You can find him, can't you? Rex didn't bark. He didn't whine. He simply leaned into her hands, eyes steady, pupils sharp with purpose. It was an answer, a promise. And everyone felt it. The room held its breath, not in fear this time, but in awakening. Because Emily had finally spoken, because Rex had finally reacted, because for the first time since the nightmare began, the truth had a pulse. The room felt different now, charged with a new kind of intensity. Not fear, not confusion, purpose. Emily sat at the small table in the private chamber, Rex curled protectively beside her chair. His warm body pressed against her leg, like a silent reassurance that she wasn't facing the dark alone. Across the room, the investigators had stopped speaking. Files lay open on the table, photos scattered, but no one touched them. Everyone watched Emily, because for the first time since the nightmare began, she wasn't just remembering, she was reconstructing the truth. The female investigator gently set a blank sheet of paper in front of the little girl. Emily, do you think you could draw it? The basement you saw? Emily hesitated. Her fingers twitched. Rex nudged her gently with his nose. She nodded. Slowly, she picked up the pencil. The first line came shaky. The next, steadier. Then the next, more certain, more defined, as if each stroke unlocked another memory buried behind the fear. A rectangular room, a staircase, a door with a thick lock, a small window, too high for a child to reach, a corner where boxes were piled, and then the detail that made the investigator's breath catch, an outline of a figure standing just outside the door, only the lower half, drawn heavily, darkly, with boots. Heavy boots, thick soles. Mud scraped along the edges. Rex reacted, before any human did. His ears shot forward, His muscles went tight. A low, uneasy sound rumbled in his chest. Half growl, half whine. Not aggression, not fear. Recognition. The investigator leaned in. That layout. It looks like a rural storage basement. It matches the structure type we see in older farmhouses. Emily's small hand shook as she added a final detail. The faint outline of another small shape behind the door. Her brother. Her breath trembled. He cried for me, she whispered, tears threatening again. Emily, the investigator said softly, you're helping us more than you know. The girl set the pencil down, but she didn't look at the drawing. She looked at Rex. Always Rex. Her whisper came soft, fragile. Will this help you find him? Rex placed one big paw on her foot. It was enough, her guardian whispered through tears. He understands, sweetheart. He's trying. But Emily wasn't done. I have something else. She dug into the front pocket of her dress, fingers fumbling. Clumsy from fear or urgency, no one could tell. Finally, she pulled out an old children's smartwatch. The band was cracked. The screen flickered faintly. The investigator blinked. What's that? Emily swallowed. I had it. The night Noah disappeared. I took a picture because I thought the noise was a raccoon. Her hands shook violently as she held the device up. But it wasn't. The investigator carefully took the watch, tapping the screen until the Photos app appeared. The first two were random. Shots of Emily's feet, a blurry corner of a living room. Then the third photo loaded. The room went still. A grainy, dimly lit image, shadows smearing the frame, a door slightly ajar, and at the edge of the photo, a boot. Large, heavy, mud-caked. The angle was low, as if taken from a child's height, pointing toward the basement stairs. Emily whispered, I didn't mean to take it. I was scared. My hands were shaking. The investigator zoomed in. Even pixelated, the boot was unmistakable. Thick-soled, black leather, patterned with a distinctive scuff on the toe. The male investigator entered the room carrying a stack of files. When he saw the image, he stopped dead in his tracks. That boot, he breathed. I've seen that before. The female investigator's head snapped toward him. Where? He rifled through the documents, pulling a mugshot and a personnel photo side by side. This, he said, laying the second photo on the table, is Martin Hale. Who? The guardian asked. The defense lawyer's private investigator, his so-called associate. A chill rippled through the room. Emily stared at the photo of the man she'd never seen, yet somehow remembered through fear. The investigator continued. Hale was questioned briefly early in the case, claimed he had nothing to do with the disappearance, but we didn't have enough to hold him. Rex moved, slowly at first, then faster. He stood over the smartwatch, sniffing the photo displayed on screen. He inhaled deeply, nostrils flaring, chest expanding. Then again, sharper, shorter, focused. Every handler in the world would recognize what came next. Rex backed up one step. His ears went rigid. His tail straightened. And then, a piercing, high-pitched whine tore from his throat. The investigator's eyes widened. That's his missing person alert. Emily gasped, dropping to her knees, arms looping around Rex's neck. The dog wasn't whining from fear. He was signaling. He scented the same trace, the same chemical whisper of danger from the photo. Rex's entire body vibrated with urgency. He paced once, twice, snout low, sniffing the watch, the air, the table. Then he turned toward the door and barked. Not in anger, not in confusion, in direction. He wanted out. He wanted to follow the scent. He wanted to track. Mini-climax number 4 hit with explosive force. Rex was alerting. He'd identified a connection. He wanted to track the man. He wanted to go now. Emily's breath collapsed into sobs. Memories she had tried to bury clawed back. Noah screaming her name, boots thudding on the stairs, the locked door, the darkness. She collapsed into Rex, shaking uncontrollably, clutching him as though he were the only thing keeping her tethered to the present. "Rex! Rex! Find him!" she cried. Rex pushed his head against her chest. One firm, grounding thrust. A promise. A vow. A declaration. He wasn't just reacting. He was ready. The investigator nodded sharply to the officers outside. "Gear up. We're following this lead immediately." Emily looked up at Rex, voice breaking. Raw and small and filled with desperate hope. "Please, don't let him be alone." Rex barked once. Sharp, confident, unshakable. And the room knew the hunt had begun. The convoy of police vehicles cut through the night like a string of moving stars, their lights piercing the darkness that swallowed the forest on all sides. Rain hammered down in relentless sheets, turning the dirt road into a slick, treacherous river of mud. Branches whipped against windshields, and thunder rolled somewhere far off. Low, rumbling, like the earth itself was warning them of what waited ahead. Inside the first vehicle, Rex sat upright in the back seat, pressed against the metal barrier, eyes unblinking. His fur was bristled, not out of fear, but fierce anticipation. Every few seconds he lifted his head, sniffing the air, drawing in scents carried by the storm. He was already tracking. He had been tracking since the moment he smelled the photo. And nothing, not the storm, not the darkness, not exhaustion, would stop him. Emily watched from another cruiser behind them. Her seat pulled close to the window despite her guardian's gentle attempts to ease her back. She clutched Rex's training badge in both hands, holding it so tightly the metal edges dug into her palms. She didn't care. She wanted something that belonged to him, something solid, something that made her feel like he was nearby. Her breath fogged the glass. Her heart beat so loudly she could hear it. Every bump in the road made her jolt, afraid something might go wrong before Rex could find her brother. Her whisper was barely audible over the storm. "Please find him, Rex. Please." Lightning flashed, illuminating the treetops in ghostly silver, then plunging everything back into shadow. The vehicles halted suddenly. Emily pressed her face to the window. Officers leapt out, rain soaking them instantly as they gathered around Rex's SUV. When the handler opened the door, Rex jumped out into the storm without hesitation, landing with a splash that sent water flying. He didn't shake it off. He didn't pause. He lowered his nose to the ground and inhaled, and then he began to run. "Move!" the handler shouted. "He's got the scent!" Flashlights cut through the darkness as half a dozen officers followed the German shepherd into the woods. Branches snapped underfoot. Mud sucked at their boots. Rain pelted their faces, but no one slowed. Rex ran like lightning had entered his veins. Focused, determined, untouchable. Water streamed down his coat, but he didn't blink, didn't break stride. His instincts guided him like a compass forged from years of training and the fierce loyalty of a heart that refused to give up on a child. As he ran, memories flickered behind his eyes, not thoughts, but sharp sensory imprints of past missions. A boy lost in a snowstorm, Rex's nose buried in freezing powder until he found a trail that led to a shivering child half buried in white. A girl trapped in a collapsed cabin, Rex clawing through rubble with paws torn and bleeding until he uncovered her tiny hand. A toddler wandering from home at dawn, Rex following the faint scent through fields and creeks until he guided her safely back. Every child carried a scent of fear and hope mixed together, something Rex never forgot. And Noah's scent was there too. Faint, nearly swallowed by the storm and the forest, but present. Rex pressed forward, weaving between trees, barreling over fallen logs, ignoring the sharp snaps of branches scraping his sides. Behind him, officers struggled to keep up. God, he's fast. Don't lose sight of him. Stay together. But Rex wasn't slowing. Not now. Not ever. Because he remembered Emily's voice, her tears on his fur, her desperate whisper, "He's still alive." That was enough for Rex to burn through the night like a living flame. Meanwhile, Emily clung to the badge so tightly her fingers ached. She watched the silhouettes of officers disappear into the shadows, swallowed whole by the forest. She couldn't go with them. She wasn't allowed. She understood that. But her heart was already running beside Rex. Her guardian placed an arm around her. "He'll find him, Emily. He won't stop." Emily shook her head slowly, tears gathering beneath her lashes. "I know." Because she had seen something in Rex no adult had noticed. A resolve born from more than training. A promise. The storm grew stronger, wind howling through the trees like a wild thing. Emily closed her eyes, holding the badge to her chest. "Please, Rex, don't leave him alone in the dark." Deep in the forest, Rex came to a sudden stop. The handler nearly collided with him. "Whoa! Rex? What is it? What do you—" Rex's ears shot forward. His tail froze. His stance lowered. A low rumble vibrated in his throat. Not anger, but the deep, instinctive warning that he was on the edge of something significant. The forest quieted as if listening. Rain still fell, but softer under the thick canopy. The team gathered around Rex, shining their flashlights ahead. "What's he found?" "Everyone steady. What's up there?" Rex stepped forward again, slow, deliberate. The beams of light swept ahead and landed upon the dark silhouette of a cabin. Old, weather-beaten, half swallowed by vines and shadows. The windows were black, like empty eyes. The wooden boards sagged with age. Smoke stains clung to the roof's edges, as if it had once known fire. One officer whispered, voice thick with dread, "Is that abandoned?" "It looks like it's been empty for years," another murmured. But Rex disagreed. He moved forward, muscles coiled, every sense sharpened. His nose twitched, catching invisible threads of scent woven into the damp night air. His next sound wasn't a bark. It wasn't a growl. It was a deep, chest-borne exhale, the kind that meant only one thing. He recognized something. He stepped closer, ears forward, body rigid, tail low and ready. Mini-climax number 5 hit like a lightning bolt. Rex stood before the abandoned cabin, poised like a warrior at the gates of a battlefield. Because Noah's scent led here. The storm raged around them. But Rex didn't move. He'd found something, and he wasn't leaving. The rain hammered against the forest canopy as officers surrounded the abandoned cabin, their flashlights slicing through the shadows like nervous beams searching for answers. The storm pressed around them, loud, merciless, but the silence inside the cabin felt even louder. Rex stood at the front, muscles coiled, ears rigid, tail pointed straight behind him like an arrow ready to fly. His breath misted in the cold air as he pressed his nose toward the front door, sniffing with a desperation no human could understand. The handler stepped forward. "All right, break it." Officers rammed their shoulders into the swollen wooden door. Once, twice, and on the third hit, the frame splintered. The door swung inward with a crack that echoed through the empty structure. The cabin smelled of rot, damp wood, and something else. Something faint, but unmistakable to Rex. Human scent. He bolted inside before the officers could even finish clearing the doorway. "Rex, wait!" But he didn't wait. His paws skidded across dusty floorboards as he darted deeper into the darkness. The cabin was nearly empty. Broken furniture, cobwebs, collapsed shelves scattered like abandoned memories. Then Rex froze. At the center of the room lay a large, tattered rug, stained with mildew, frayed along the edges. Rex didn't see it the way humans did. He smelled what lay beneath it. He lunged. His teeth gripped the rug, ripping it back with violent urgency. Dust exploded into the air, swirling through the flashlight beams as officers stumbled toward him. Under the rug was a trapdoor. Old, wooden, with rusted hinges and a lock that had been broken recently. The handler swore under his breath. Jesus! He found something. He found something. Rex began pawing at the trapdoor. No, not pawing. He was clawing at it. Violently, frantically. Wood splintered under his nails. He shoved his snout into the crack, inhaled sharply, then backed up and began barking. Not a warning bark. Not an alert bark. A terrified, desperate bark. His whole body trembled with the urgency of the sound. A missing person panic signal. The officers surged forward. "Pry it open! Hurry! Now!" Crowbars were shoved into the crevice. Wood groaned. Hinges screamed. Rex barked harder, circling the opening, tail rigid, breathing rapid. Emily's voice echoed in the handler's mind. "Please, don't leave him alone in the dark." With a final metallic shriek, the trapdoor cracked open. A rush of cold, stale air burst upward, carrying the unmistakable scent of fear and confinement. Flashlights angled downward, and all at once, every breath in the cabin caught. There, curled on the dirt floor of a narrow basement, was a boy. Small, pale, shaking, alive. "Noah," an officer whispered. Rex didn't wait for permission. He leapt down into the basement, landing softly, carefully, as though afraid the boy might break. The officers followed cautiously, but Rex reached Noah first. The boy's head lifted weakly. He blinked through exhaustion and fear, eyes sunken, cheeks streaked with dried tears. He stared at the large shadow approaching him, and recognition flickered like a dying flame catching wind. "Dog," Noah whispered, barely breath. "Emily's dog." Rex stepped close, so close their noses nearly touched, and let out a soft whine, a sound carrying relief, sorrow, and gentle encouragement all at once. Noah's lips trembled. "Emily, and the dog, they found me?" The handler swallowed hard, blinking rapidly to hide emotion. "Yeah, kid," he murmured. "They found you." Rex did something then that pulled tears from even the hardest officers. He gently lowered himself beside Noah. Slowly, tenderly, like he understood the fragility of the bruised, trembling body next to him. He curled just enough for Noah's small hand to reach him. The boy's fingers slipped into Rex's fur, weak but clinging, as though holding on to a lifeline. Rex didn't move. He stayed. Still, warm, steady, alive. A living shield between the boy and the dark. Officers moved carefully, circling the small space. No obvious wounds, just dehydration. "He's freezing. Get blankets. Call medical. Now." But none of them touched him until Rex gave a tiny nod, an instinctive signal of permission. Only then did they begin lifting Noah gently, wrapping him in thermal blankets, whispering reassurance. Rex stayed inches from him, pacing every movement, eyes never leaving his face. There wasn't a dry eye in the cabin. One officer wiped his nose on his sleeve. Another muttered. Morning light spilled through the tall windows of the courthouse, casting long beams across the polished wooden floor. But even the soft glow couldn't ease the tension simmering inside the packed courtroom. It wasn't fear anymore. It was anticipation, hope, outrage, and the trembling breath before justice finally speaks. At the front of the room, handcuffed and pale, sat the disgraced defense lawyer, Mr. Harland. His once perfectly tailored suit was wrinkled. His collar hung loose, and his face, usually a mask of smug confidence, was now tight with panic. He had spent the night under interrogation. He had broken. Evidence had flooded in. Messages, phone calls, hidden payments, his connection to Martin Hale, the man whose boots appeared in Emily's photo. Ledger entries, witness statements, and dozens of officers declaring sabotage. Now he waited for Judge Monroe's words, like a man watching his world fold in on itself. Whispers rippled through the courtroom like wind moving through tall grass. He was involved the whole time. I can't believe a lawyer would do that. What kind of monster uses a child like that? But all conversation died instantly when the doors at the back of the courtroom opened. Two officers entered first. Behind them, Emily. Her small hand clutched tightly around her guardian's fingers, and to her right, wrapped in a thermal jacket with an IV still taped to his arm, walked Noah. Weak, pale, but standing, alive. The courtroom gasped softly, as if witnessing a miracle unfold. Noah's eyes scanned the room until they found her. "Emily," he whispered. Emily didn't walk toward him. She ran. Her shoes pattered across the floor. Her hair flew behind her like a banner of relief. And when she collided with her brother's chest, she wrapped her arms around him with a force impossible for someone her size. Noah staggered, but held her just as tightly, his face crumpling in overwhelming emotion. "You came for me," he whispered. "You and Rex." At the sound of his name, Emily turned, wiping tears from her cheeks. There he was. Rex, standing tall behind them, still wearing his harness, watching with the quiet, powerful presence of a guardian angel made of muscle and fur. He had been cleaned up after the night's mission, but the forest remnants still clung to him. Dirt caught in the edges of his paw pads, dampness along his coat, scratches on his legs from the brambles he tore through without hesitation. The dog looked tired, but proud. When Emily let go of her brother just enough to reach for Rex, the German shepherd stepped forward, pressing his head into her hands. Noah knelt weakly beside her, resting one trembling hand on Rex's broad shoulders. "Thank you," Noah whispered, voice breaking. "Thank you." Rex closed his eyes, leaning into both children, as if claiming them as his own. The entire courtroom fell silent again, not out of tension, but reverence. Even reporters lowered their cameras, unwilling to break the sacred moment. Judge Monroe cleared his throat, struggling to maintain composure, though emotion softened the stern lines of his face. "Let the record show," he said, voice thick, "that the children are present and safe." Emily clung to Noah's sleeve, refusing to let go. The judge turned toward Rex. "And let the record also show," the room leaned forward, "that Officer Rex, K-9 unit, displayed extraordinary service." Rex's ears perked. The judge continued, warmth rising in his voice. "This dog saved 2 lives today." A heartbeat of silence. Then, the first pair of hands clapped. Then another. Then another. Until applause thundered across the room. Loud, raw, unrestrained, not polite, not rehearsed, grateful, human, true. Rex blinked, confused at first, then stood straighter, chest lifting as if he understood this strange human ritual was meant for him. Emily smiled through tear-soaked cheeks. Noah whispered, "They're clapping for him." Emily nodded, resting her head against Rex's side. "He deserves it." The prosecutor rose, voice firm but emotional. "Without Rex, this case would have ended in tragedy. He found what we could not. He saw what we missed, and he brought 2 children back together." Another wave of applause. Even the bailiff, usually stone-faced, wiped at his eyes. Harland, handcuffed and defeated, hung his head. There was no sympathy for him. Only relief that justice had finally broken through corruption. Judge Monroe lifted a hand. The applause softened, but did not die. It faded into soft murmurs of admiration. The judge took a deep breath. "This courtroom," he said, "owes a debt to a little girl brave enough to trust again, a boy strong enough to hold on, and a dog whose loyalty never once wavered." Emily and Noah pressed closer to Rex. The dog leaned between them, as though shielding them even now. And in that small space between a brother, a sister, and their 4-legged hero, justice breathed. The courtroom awakened, not with fear, not with conflict, but with gratitude, and something even deeper, faith in a dog whose heart knew the truth before any human did. The courtroom had never felt so full of life. The heavy wooden doors, usually shutting in fear, anger, and tension, now opened to a slow, collective rise of hope. Sunlight filtered through high windows, settling across the benches like a gentle reminder that, for once, justice wasn't a cold word in a book. It was something breathing, something warm, something standing proudly at the center of the room, in the form of a German shepherd with steady eyes and a calm, solid stance. Rex. He stood near the front, not quite understanding the ceremony forming around him, yet strangely aware that this moment mattered in ways missions, commands, or badges never could. Today wasn't about duty. It was about hearts healing, about truth rising after being buried for too long, about the 2 children he had fought for with every ounce of instinct he had. Emily and her brother sat side by side, their hands intertwined tightly. For Noah, still recovering, every breath was a gift. For Emily, every heartbeat was a step away from fear. And Rex was the bridge that brought them here. When the judge called Emily's name, the room fell into a hush so deep it felt like even the walls were listening. She hesitated. For months, she hadn't spoken in front of anyone. Her voice was a fragile thing, held tightly to her chest, afraid it would crack and spill out every wound she carried. But today was different, because Rex was here, and he wasn't moving. He was watching her. Waiting, Emily rose slowly, her legs trembling as she walked toward the front. Her brother squeezed her hand once before letting go. Her guardian followed behind, but Emily kept her eyes forward, focused on Rex. Rex lowered himself to sit, ears forward, tail brushing the wooden floor in a soft, steady rhythm. Emily reached him. She knelt, gently pressing her forehead to his. The room watched, silent, reverent. This was more than affection. It was courage, transferring from one soul to another. She turned toward the stand. The judge nodded. Emily, whenever you're ready. She looked at her hands, small, shaking, fighting the memories that once paralyzed her. She closed her eyes, feeling Rex's warmth beside her. And then, soft as morning light, her voice came. Thank you, Rex. The words were barely a whisper, but in the silent room, they echoed like a bell. Emily's voice trembled, but she continued, each sentence stronger than the last. You were the only one who listened. When I was scared, when no one believed me, when remembering my brother hurt too much, you stayed. Rex tilted his head, watching her with an intensity that felt almost human. Emily reached into her pocket. Slowly, carefully, and the courtroom froze. The toy car, that tiny innocent lie that had carried so much fear. Emily placed it on the stand. It used to scare me, she whispered. I didn't know why. I thought something was wrong with me. But Rex knew. He knew it wasn't safe. A tear traced her cheek. Someone in the back row let out a quiet sob. Emily looked at the officers, the ones who searched through nights, storms, and fear. Rex didn't just help me. He protected us. He showed us the truth, even when grown-ups didn't see it. Her voice softened, trembling with honesty. He's not just a police dog. He's my friend. Rex let out a deep, gentle chuff. The sergeant stepped forward carrying a velvet-lined box. His voice wavered. For extraordinary service, for unwavering loyalty, for courage beyond measure, and for saving 2 young lives. He opened the box. Inside, a new silver badge, gleaming like hope reborn, etched at the center. Rex, guardian of truth. The sergeant clipped it onto Rex's harness. The dog stood still, absorbing the moment, then looking up at Emily. She fell to her knees, throwing her arms around him. You didn't just save my brother. You saved me too. The room filled with quiet sobbing, from people who once believed they were immune to moments like this. Rex nuzzled her cheek, sealing a promise without a single word. The judge rose. Let it be recorded, he said, that today, justice was not delivered by a badge, nor by a gavel, nor by authority, but by loyalty, intuition, and the bond between a child and her dog. Applause erupted, not polite, not practiced, but real, grateful, human. Emily took Noah's hand. With Rex beside them, they walked down the aisle. People stepped aside as though witnessing something sacred. At the doors, sunlight poured over them. Emily paused, looking at Rex. "Come on," she whispered. "We're going home." Rex's tail lifted. He walked forward with them, steady, loyal, proud. The doors opened wide. Golden light bathed them. The world outside was no longer the dark place where fear once lived. It was a world where truth had been found, where hope returned, where a dog's instincts had rewritten fate. Rex looked back once, ensuring peace had finally settled. Then he walked on, beside the children, because he chose to. Fade out. Sometimes stories like this remind us why dogs, especially German shepherds, hold such a sacred place in our lives. It's not just their strength or training, it's their loyalty, their instinct to protect, and the quiet, beautiful way they understand our hearts, even when we cannot find the words.